The scariest things that happened in the morgue. Story time. Jennifer had been working night shift in a morgue around 5 years when this happened. Her job was to watch over the morgue all night and make sure nobody broke in or messed with the bodies. That evening, the police bring in a female, a young Jane Doe in her early 20s with long black hair. So Jennifer and a co-worker named Ben roll the Jane Doe into a refrigeration room, but they realize all the drawers are full except for one, number 3. Drawer number 3 had a sign on it that said, "Out of order, do not use." But they didn't have anywhere else to put the Jane Doe, so they had to put her in drawer 3. They get settled in, they start doing their paperwork, and around 10 o'clock, they hear this weird scratchy sound. Jennifer says, "Did you hear that?" Ben said, "Yeah." So they start walking down the hallway looking for that noise, and it leads them to the refrigeration room. Drawer number 3 has been opened up about 6 inches. They both question, how the hell did that happen? We know it wasn't either of us because we were both sitting in the office together. So Jennifer pulled the drawer open and saw that Jane Doe still laying there, perfectly intact, except her fingers are not crossed like they were before. Everybody they put in those drawers, they would interlace their fingers like this, but Jane Doe's arms were laying flat beside of her, so Jennifer put her fingers back in this position and closed the drawer. Ben wrapped a rubber band around the door latch and even pulled it hard several times to make sure it wouldn't pop open on its own, and then they went back to work. Later in the night, about 12 o'clock, again they hear that same scratching noise, except this time it's louder. It's coming from the refrigeration room, so they both go back in there, and again the drawer is standing open, except this time her body's exposed. Jane Doe is still laying there, but her arm is hanging off the side of the drawer, so Ben checks her for a pulse, but does not find one. Her eyes are milky white, her skin's blue, she's in the first stages of rigor mortis. They confirm she's dead. So Jennifer and Ben put her arm back in, interlace her fingers, and they close the drawer, and this time they put a chair in front of the door so it can't be opened. They think a co-worker's trying to prank them, so they check the whole building, but nobody's there. Around 1 a.m., they're sitting at their desk about to fall asleep when they hear a bam, bam, bam. Just like before, they know the sound's coming from the refrigeration room, and when they get there, they find that drawer number 3 is standing wide open. Except this time, the Jane Doe is completely flipped over on her stomach, and both arms are hanging off each side of the drawer. Her head is completely turned, and her ice-cold wet hair is hanging over the edge of that drawer. It looks like she tried to climb out of there. The power cuts off, so Jennifer grabs the flashlight off the table, cuts it on, so they slide her back into the drawer. They put a chair in front of the door. She said, "Look, I don't know what's going on, but I don't like this. We need to get out of here." Ben said, "We can't leave these bodies unattended. It's our job. Either a co-worker's trying to prank us or someone's trying to get us fired." Ben's getting annoyed, so he sets the code to the big refrigeration door so nobody can get in or out of that room except for him and Jennifer. And the power cuts back on, so they go down to the basement. They check the breaker box, but all the breakers are fine. They go back to their desk, continue working. About 5 a.m., they hear the refrigeration door alarm go off like someone opened it. He opens the door and shines a flashlight down the hallway, and then he stops. Jennifer said, "What is it? What do you see?" Ben said, I don't know what that is." And when Jennifer looked out into the hallway, she saw black hair hanging from the ceiling. Jane Doe was on the ceiling. They shut their door back. Jennifer grabs the phone. There's no dial tone. Ben said, "What the hell was that? A demon or something? Is Jane Doe a demon?" For the next hour, they hear scratching, stomping, doors slamming, whispering, laughing, up until 6 a.m. when the morning shift comes in. Their supervisor walks in, knocks on the door. She said, "What are y'all doing locked in here?" Jennifer and Ben said, "We had to lock ourselves up. Jane Doe kept crawling out of drawer 3 all night. We used a rubber band, a chair, we locked the door, we tried everything to keep her in drawer 3, but they took their supervisor down to the refrigeration room, opened the door and said, 'See, it's drawer number 3. And when they looked, drawer number 3 was closed. The latch was on there. It was locked. The chair was in place. Nothing had been moved. The supervisor said, Jennifer said, "What do you mean, I thought you would call us crazy or say we're lying or something like that." And the supervisor said, "No, we've always had problems with drawer number 3. I mean, that's why it says out of order, do not use." Ben said, "It doesn't make sense. Why does it only happen when we put a body in drawer number 3? The supervisor said, "I don't know. I don't care. Just don't use it." For any new watchers, this is my only storytime account. If you don't see over 400,000 followers, that's not me. I don't mind people using my content, but what I do mind is people pretending to be me, selling products on TikTok shop using my name and face. Check the followers and name, and if it don't match, report them.
Imagine you catch your dad talking to himself, and then later you find out that your dad has had an imaginary friend ever since he was little. Now I'm happy that I didn't have a dad. So this guy says that ever since he was little, he would notice that his dad would always be talking by himself. With time, it became something normal, like an everyday thing. The dad would be working on his car and he would be talking to himself. But he started to notice that he wasn't just talking to himself. It sounded like an actual conversation, almost like if the dad was listening to something and he would respond to it. His mom also hated that she didn't like that her husband would be talking to himself, that it was really weird. Unfortunately, when the guy who's telling us the story was 12 years old, his father did end up passing away. He explains that after the funeral, after everything, his mom was obviously really sad, and there was a day where he had to be home alone. He was also really sad, so when he was home alone, he decided to talk out loud to his dad. He started to tell him, "I miss you so much. You shouldn't be dead right now. Why did you have to leave us? I love you so much. I wish you were here." He explains that after saying all of this, out of nowhere, he just had that really weird sensation that he wasn't alone at home. He looks down the hallway of the house and he says that he sees a shadow coming out of his parents' bedroom. For a little bit, he started to think that maybe that was his dad, like maybe his dad was back just to accompany him. One day he was in his bedroom and he started to do the thing again. He would just start talking to his dad like, "Dad, I miss you. I wish you were here. I'm so sad." To be honest, he says that sometimes he would say that with a lot of like energy, a lot of wanting for his dad to be there, because at that point he thought that that shadow was his dad. So he wanted to say those things so that the shadow would appear and he could see his dad. When he would see the shadow at first, he thought, "Oh, I'm not by myself. I'm not alone and my dad is here." However, there was almost like a switch. So out of nowhere, he went from like longing to see the shadow to now being terrified, and he doesn't understand why. So there was a night where he was in the shower. Please, I'm not showering tonight after this. What do you mean? There was a night where he's in the shower. He's putting shampoo on his head, his eyes are closed, and that is when he started to feel like he was being watched. And that's not all of it, because he says that as the water was coming down like over his head, he was starting to hear like the drops of the water near his ear. He said that those drops of water almost started to sound like whispers, and he was so scared he didn't want to open his eyes. But in one of those moments where he started to hear a whisper, he heard a very specific phrase being whispered into his ear, and this thing tells him, "You're not him." That is where the story ends. But it's like, what if it was his dad's imaginary friend basically coming to tell him, "I know you're not your dad, like your dad is gone, but like what the fuck are you still doing here?" Or what do you guys think?
The rain began just as they were entering Bath. It was relentless but cosy. Simone shivered in pleasure as she pulled her jumper cuffs over her hands. Storms were her favourite. Finally, through the curtains of pine trees, she saw it. The Evermore Spa. "Oh my good sweet lord," Hermione said. "This is bloody gorgeous." And Simone agreed. It was a beautiful old manor house tucked impossibly deep within the woods. Warm amber lights glowed through the windows, steam drifted lazily from an outdoor thermal pool, surrounded by ancient oak trees. Pure bliss. The receptionist greeted them before they'd even reached the desk. "You must be Simone and Hermione." She smiled warmly. "My name is Evelyn." She looked about 40, with tidy auburn hair tied into a bun and calm, intelligent eyes. Simone and Hermione warmed to her immediately. What a lovely woman. She laughed at their jokes, which they loved, apologised for the weather, and even carried one of their bags upstairs herself. There was something about her, though, that seemed... what was the word for it? Nervous, maybe? Perhaps even scared. "I know this place can feel isolated," she admitted, with a wary smile twitching on her face. Signal disappears, but that's kind of the point. Pretend that Evermore Spa is the only place on the planet. Simone liked her immediately. The room was stunning. 2 4-poster beds, gold furnishings, hundreds of throw pillows, and diptyque candles burning on every surface. They squealed into light and rushed to open their heaving suitcases. "Which robe shall I wear first?" Hermione said, staring at fistfuls of silk fabric she'd crammed in a case. But Simone wasn't listening. She was staring out of the window that overlooked the pool and the spa. "That's a bit creepy, isn't it?" Simone said. "What?" Hermione left her bag and walked to join Simone at the window. The guests. Outside, perhaps 20 people stood around the steaming pool. They were all looking in different directions, some into the pool, some at the sky, and some were staring straight at the girls. You know what spa people are like? They've probably had about 18 massages today and they're up to their eyeballs in lotion and endorphins. The girls checked the time and decided it was getting too late for the spa, so they'd get ready for dinner and make a full day of the pool tomorrow. They walked into the dining room and gasped. The walls were painted in mahoganies and forest screens, with old books adorning the walls, covered in dust and looking about 100 years old. The aesthetic was beautiful. They gazed on at the roaring fire in the rain-streaked windows, both girls making a mental note to snap a photo for Instagram later. #blessed, #spa, #relax, #wine. Evelyn rushed towards them. "Lovely to see you both. How are your rooms? Are you all settled in?" Before either girl could answer her question, she flounced off and gestured for them to follow her. She still had that nervous energy about her, Hermione thought, but maybe she just wanted some good Yelp reviews from them both. It wasn't until they sat down that they noticed the other diners. Every single table was full, but you could hear a pin drop. Forks moved and wine glasses lifted to lips, but no one was uttering a word. No conversation, nothing. Whenever Simone accidentally caught someone's eye, they smiled, and then they looked back down at their plate. "I kind of hate this," Hermione whispered. "It's too quiet." The girls agreed to ignore the other guests and just not let them ruin their weekend. The following morning, they visited the outdoor spa. Steam drifted across the water, the smell of essential oils wafted past their nostrils. It would be the perfect setting if it wasn't for the other guests. They were back exactly where they'd been the day before. There was only one difference. Some of the guests had started turning their eyes to Simone and Hermione where they were and smiling. Again, the girls tried to ignore the odd stares from the strangers and Simone climbed into the pool. The water was blissfully hot. She looked across at a young woman sitting on the opposite side. "Beautiful place," she said. The woman smiled, but didn't say a word. That night, the girls decided they were leaving. They packed their bags in their gorgeous room and left Evermore Spa. They hadn't even checked out or said goodbye to Evelyn. They simply walked away. They were halfway to the tiny train station, their wheelie cases trundling behind them when Hermione stopped. "It's no good," she sighed. "I feel awful. We've abandoned Evelyn there. She doesn't deserve that. Whatever's happening at the spa, Evelyn is a victim and we need to help." Simone rolled her eyes and turned on a heel back in the direction of Evermore. The lights in the looming manor flickered in the windows as the girls approached. They made their way to reception, determined to talk to Evelyn to find out what was really going on. Maybe even convince her to leave with them. Get a train to London, start a new life there. The girls pressed the bell on the reception desk. When Evelyn arrived, she didn't seem surprised. "Ah," she said with a grimace. "You've noticed them, I guess." "Pretty hard not to," Hermione said. "They won't leave." Evelyn's voice cracked with emotion and Hermione's face went pale. "Are they dangerous?" "No, they've never hurt anyone." "Well, then why are they here?" Evelyn looked genuinely frightened. "Because they're trapped. They won't let me leave either." "Evelyn, we're going to go to bed now, but first thing tomorrow morning, the three of us are going to figure out a way of getting all of us out of here together." That night, Simone woke to singing. A woman's voice drifted through the corridor. She checked the clock. 3:17 a.m. The singing continued. "A pocket full of posies." It echoed from downstairs. Simone shook Hermione awake. Together they crept into the hallway and the singing became louder, happier and excited even. "Ashes! Ashes!" They heard giggling and then running footsteps. Bare feet slapped across the old wooden floors. Hermione tiptoed to the door and swung it open. She frowned. She couldn't work out what she was seeing. Evelyn, creeping along the hallway, but she froze, looking like a villain in a Scooby-Doo episode. I could just imagine that. She stood up straight and giggled. "Evelyn, what's going on?" "I was trying to keep the pretense up," Evelyn said without a care in the world. "Oh, ghosts at the pool, so scary," she said in a mimicking voice. "And unfortunately for you girls," Simone noticed Evelyn was holding something behind her back, "I'm scarier." Girls ran. Their feet pounded down the corridor and out onto the cobbled stones of the courtyard. Simone pulled Hermione into a thicket of trees and breathlessly they watched through the leaves. They watched Evelyn as she followed them through the front door. She skipped through the garden and even into the darkness. The girls could see that she was carrying something very shiny. She was singing loudly now, laughing between verses, holding a huge kitchen knife. Her neat hair had come loose and she ran out of view singing, "The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round." It got quieter as she skipped away from them. Round and round, round, round. Then, silence. Hermione and Simone didn't dare breathe. The only sound was raindrops on the foliage surrounding them. "There you are!" "Oh my..." The grin on her face sent shivers down the spine. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Simone froze. "You need to understand something about this place. The spa was dying, you know. My husband inherited it. He said that people wanted everything. They complained, they wanted refunds, he wanted to sell, but I couldn't let him." She looked past them, back towards Evermore. The girls turned too and peered through the leaves. Every single window was lined with figures. Hermione and Simone knew that the guests were staring at them. "So I fixed it," Evelyn said. And then she laughed, a horrible, delighted laugh. "The first to go was my husband. He drowned beautifully. The water's very deep beneath the thermal vents. Then a guest slipped on some balsamic vinegar from the restaurant. She winked. I helped. After that, I realised how easy it was for little accidents to happen around the hotel." She spun beneath the rain. "They never leave. This place is full month after month. And do you want to know the best bit? They don't say a word. No shouting. No bad reviews. They're the perfect guests. And now, you will be as well." Evelyn raised the knife and Hermione and Simone ran. They ran back inside the manor for no reason whatsoever.
Oh, God, bad choice.
The chase through the manor became madness. Evelyn sprinted barefoot through corridors, singing nursery rhymes at the top of her lungs. She laughed whenever she lost sight of them. Come out, wherever you are! I've got fresh towels! There's new chocolates on your pillows! She smashed mirrors with the knife as she passed. Portraits fell from walls and lights burst overhead. Simone and Hermione barricaded themselves inside the treatment rooms. The handle rattled violently. Then came Evelyn's sweet voice through the door. I know you're frightened, but you just have to relax. You are at a spa, after all. Police arrived the following afternoon. The investigation uncovered hidden rooms beneath the spa and dozens of bones. Guests who had vanished over nearly 20 years ago. And among the debris, the bodies of 2 young women. The investigators concluded that Evelyn had inherited the failing spa with a husband who'd planned to sell it to developers after years of financial losses. Obsessed with preserving the place exactly as she believed it should be, she descended into paranoia, convinced that demanding guests critical reviews and anyone who wanted change were destroying her sanctuary. Each murder became, in her mind, an act of protection. When the victim's ghost remained, she welcomed them as the only guests who would never leave, never complain, and never leave a bad review. Evelyn was never found. The police scoured the country for her, but nothing. The spa was eventually demolished, the foundations filled with concrete. The woods reclaimed the land. Today, hikers sometimes report hearing distant singing among the trees whenever rain begins to fall. And if they follow it, they occasionally discover an old stone pool hidden beneath moss and roots. Around its edge stand smiling figures just waiting for someone new to check in.
Trigger warning, if you don't like scary stories, you don't like paranormal, you want a good sleep at night, go ahead and scroll because I'm about to read another scary story submission that was sent to me via email. Let's get into it. First off, the subject had me immediately. It says potential possession, and this was written and sent in by a Jacinta. Let's go ahead. Hey Casey, I wanted to share an experience with you that honestly traumatized me for life, but at the same time made me curious. Last year, on the 28th of February, I was sent to a place of safety, which was originally a prison. Can't really explain what happened in the prison because it's too disturbing for TikTok, but let's just say it has a very dark history. Anyway, the day I stepped into the so-called girls section, I immediately felt a really bad energy, especially late at night. The other girls would tell me stories about how the place was haunted, but one story stood out to me the most. One girl, let's call her Shannon, please keep her name in mind, was singing in the shower one night around 11 o'clock when someone started singing with her. The only thing was, everyone else was asleep, including the caretakers. One day, a few of the girls and I were bored, so we decided to play Charlie Charlie. At first, nothing unusual happened. I was wearing my cross necklace at the time, and Shannon told me to take it off because she said the game wouldn't work otherwise. Shannon also claimed to know what she called the 7 demons of hell, and repeatedly chanted their names before he started playing again. After that, she said a few words in Latin. She told us that she had heard them somewhere before but couldn't remember what they meant. Eventually, we started the game again. After chanting Charlie, Charlie a few times, the pencils suddenly fell in perfect parallel to one another. I didn't know what that meant, but Shannon insisted it was a bad sign. First, we didn't think much of it. A few minutes later, though, Shannon started laughing hysterically. Then suddenly she stopped. She stared into the small room, which is actually a built-in closet with a door that every dorm had. It was known as the darkest and creepiest part of the room. She stood there staring for what felt like 5 full minutes. Then without warning, she started screaming and crying. She became violent, and her cries became so deep, it sounded almost inhuman. We all panicked and ran out of the dorm, only after realizing afterwards that we had never actually finished the game. After a while, Shannon calmed down. But she couldn't walk. Apparently while she was in that state, she twisted her leg. Later that night, we decided to finish the game because we were terrified that something else might happen if we didn't. We asked Charlie to leave, then the dorm door suddenly slammed shut. The strange thing was that the door couldn't be opened from the inside. Somebody had to push it open from the outside. Because of that, we almost never closed it. We were all terrified, but we managed to properly end the game. To this day, I still can't believe I experienced something like that. Whether there was another explanation or not, it scared me enough that I never wanted to play any horror games or paranormal games ever again. First of all, Jacinta, thank you so much for sending in your story and trusting me to share it. I don't know if it's because I'm old, but I've never heard of this game, Charlie Charlie. I've never heard of it. It kind of sounds kind of like a Bloody Mary kind of thing, but I've never heard of it. So for the people watching, have you ever heard of and or played this game before? Because I'm very ignorant on it. I'm actually going to have to look it up. Sounds terrifying. You want to send in your scary story for a chance for me to read it on my page, just go ahead and send it to the email above. If you're new here and you want more paranormal story action, make sure to give me a follow. As always, thank you for watching. Love you, bye.
Do you want a little bedtime ghost story? Of course you do. Well, York is, as many of you know, one of the most haunted cities in Britain. It's one of my favourite places to go to. And I was told the following tale about this old house that's by the Minster in York, so the big cathedral right in the centre. Now, it's an Airbnb these days, but it was a private residence for years. It was built in the mid 1800s, so it goes back quite a distance. And anyway, I won't tell you about the ghost first, but the following couple stayed there who relayed this story to me. And upon researching it, a lot of people have reported this exact same ghostly encounter, despite the fact that the Airbnb owners do not advertise it as being haunted, because personally they're not into it and they don't want to scare people. Anyway, the couple arrive in York. They were actually from America and been walking around the city all night. They'd been on a ghost tour and went back to this lovely, terraced property that's right by the Minster, as I say, and they remember it being sort of lit up by orange lamplight in the shadows of the Minster, which is just beautiful. And I know which property they're referring to, and it is stunning. Anyway, they were woken up in the night what sounded like a stick downstairs hitting against the wall. It's like a doo, 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 doo. So they thought at first perhaps it was one of the neighbours, in one of the adjacent or next door terraced properties. So the boyfriend goes down and, they're exploring. Both are a little bit spooked anyway because they've been on a ghost tour in York, of course. And it seems to stop as they go downstairs. So anyway, later on in the night, it wakes them up again to the point the woman who was there said she had a glass of water on the side of the bed and she could actually see it shaking like this and moving with each of these bangs. So she shakes, her boyfriend awake again, says, I'm actually really scared now. I don't know what that noise is and it's giving me the creeps. And again, he goes downstairs. As he makes his way into where they've sort of got the kitchen that goes open plan into the lounge where there's, an original old fireplace, and you could tell the walls have been knocked down. It, never used to be open plan like that. And he said in the corner of the room on one of the old Chesterfield chairs, there was an old man sat there with a walking stick, a look of complete hatred on his face, and was banging it against the wall like this. And he said just as he gasped to let out a scream, the old man was gone. He just vanished into the night like that. So he ran upstairs to his girlfriend, tried at first not to say anything, but she knew he looked completely horrified. So he had to tell her what had happened. Apparently the two had to put the TV on and couldn't sleep the whole night. So next day they reported to the Airbnb owners and they say, well, we're fully aware, a lot of people have said this now and we're doing our best to sort of get ministers in and what have you to get rid of the ghost. Because apparently he was present in the house during the Victorian times and lived with his son who looked after him, but become senile and would just bang this walking cane at first when he needed something, but then was doing it almost all day and all night until the sun snapped and strangled him to death. How gruesome's that? And ever since then, the ghost of this old man has haunted this York property and is now terrorising Airbnb guests. Now, I love a ghostly experience as much as the next guy, but something about that one's extremely eerie, like the spirit that was murdered is still banging his old walking cane and actually appearing to people in York of all haunted places. So enjoy that one while you get into bed tonight. Good night.
My whole life is different and no one believes me. This poor woman. I got a either glitch in the matrix or jump in timeline story for you, and if this would have happened to me, I honestly don't know how I would navigate this. The woman telling the story, we're going to call her Sam, says that one day she was on her way to work and she went to the usual gas station that she goes to every single day. and 5 days a week, mind you. She says she goes in and everything is just completely different. She said all new drink stations had been installed and the food area was completely redone. She said none of this was different literally the day before, and she couldn't believe that they would be able to accomplish that many changes in just a short period of time. Then she goes outside and she sees that 2 of the gas pumps are completely gone. There is mulch and bags stacked up all in that space. And again, none of this was there the day before. So she leaves, she heads to work, and she somehow turns on the wrong street and gets lost. So this is the second really weird thing going on right now. She said she has been driving these neighborhoods for months and suddenly she's lost and trying to find her job. So she gets to work a few minutes later and she's panicking. She says, I know it's silly, but I've always feared changing timelines. So this is like red flagging in her mind that maybe this is a possibility. She said that even she and her fiance had a timeline safe word. She said it's so that we know we're still the same us, still together on the same timeline. So she calls and she asks him, and guys, I have goosebumps. He has no idea what she's talking about. This is literally her biggest fear. So she's like, we just talked about this like the end of last month and we had it established for a while. She says, I've even woken him up in the middle of the night before asking him to confirm because of a nightmare that she might have had. And he always has known it. And now he has no idea. Then it just keeps getting weirder. So she says the girls that she works with, they're coming downstairs. She said she works in an addictions group home. One girl keeps saying how confused she's feeling and how nothing makes sense today. And then later in the day, the other one kept saying all she wanted to do all day was cry, and she had no idea why. Okay, so a little later, now Sam is running errands, and she goes down the same street that she always does, but suddenly there are 4 houses gone and a grove of trees planted right where those 4 houses always used to be. She said, I had never seen them before and I really started freaking out. She said, they are next to a building that my family owned for the last 20 years. I know this whole neighborhood like the back of my hand. It is not the same. So she says, now the final straw was when she called her mom. And she said that her sister was going out tonight with her friend Jenna. She has known Jenna since 2003. And she asked how much longer until Jenna has her baby. Guys, her mom goes silent and she asks what the heck Sam is talking about. And she says she has never been pregnant. Okay, so Sam is really starting to lose it. So she goes and looks this girl up online and nothing. No sign of pregnancy. She then goes and asks her sister, and her sister just laughs in her face and says, Jenna's infertile and will never have kids. Sam goes on to say, I literally remember the day my sister told me she was pregnant. She told me to guess who, and Jenna was the third guess that Sam came up with. I mean, it was a whole conversation, and now her sister obviously has no idea what she's talking about. She's like, what the hell is happening in my life? Sam also wants to back herself up here and say, yes, I've already taken extensive online schizophrenia tests. She said, I double checked that it's not a CO2 poisoning because everybody's always asking about that. She has nothing going on in her home. The detectors are all 100% good. She has no idea what the heck is going on. She even opened up more to her fiance about this, and he knew that this is going on, but he didn't really know just how much this is afflicting her. And he's kind of now taking it a little more serious. And in her desperation, she even asked him if she has been showing any signs of mental instability, of Alzheimer's or anything. She's like, I am only 25. And he said, I have never shown any signs and only some mild anxiety, you know, when things get a little crazy. She also says that the day before all of this has happened, it was just a normal Tuesday. She woke up, went to work, home, eat, sleep. The only strange part about the day was that she thought she heard a scream or a yell just as she was falling to sleep. But at the time, she kind of just blew it off as some kind of sleep paralysis moment. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, this poor girl, everything is different. I would be going nuts. Just, noticing subtle differences and all of that. Drop your thoughts in the comments, you guys. And if you have a weird glitch in the matrix or timeline jump story, please send it in. If you're interested in creepy storytime merch, the link is in my bio. And if you're new here, please follow for more creepy storytime.
This story was sent to me by a follower that we're going to call Sarah, and she told me that there's one house her family still refuses to explain to this very day. They simply call it the Edison house. So Sarah told me that she was born there on a very cold morning in January, and it was an old 3-story bedroom house with a basement and a row of small apartments that were attached to one of the sides that her parents had managed. Family members were constantly coming and going, so the house always felt full. But according to her, they were not the only residents that were living there. And long before she was old enough to understand what was happening, strange things surrounded her family. And she remembers hearing adults whisper about curses and witches and rituals. And, one of her uncles had become convinced he was under some kind of spell. Sarah's grandmother eventually sought out a local woman who claimed that she could remove this energy and fix whatever was going on inside of the home. But according to the family, whatever she did, it worked, but the strange events inside the house never stopped. It made it settle for a little bit, she said, and then it kicked right back up. Sarah's own encounter happened when she was only about 3 years old. And she said her older brother and sister were at school one day, and like, any curious little kid, she wandered into her brother's bedroom looking for his chemistry set. And she had laughed, while telling me that she had no idea what she planned on doing with it, just that, she liked anything that involved fire. So she was a little pyromaniac. And as she stepped into the room, something caught her attention. In the upper right corner of the bedroom floated this massive glowing orb. And she said it looked like someone had somehow crammed the sun into the corner of the room. And it burned with a very deep orange and golden light. Yet it didn't hurt her eyes, and the strangest part was that she wasn't scared of this light or this orb. She told me an overwhelming feeling of peace had washed over her. She simply stood there staring at it until, without making a sound, the light began to then slowly fade away. Now, years later, she mentioned the experience to her sister, and before Sarah could even finish describing it, her sister just interrupted, and she's like, "Oh, I've seen it too, plenty of times." Except hers wasn't orange. She said hers was a brilliant white light, and it appeared in the very same corner of the room as well. And at first it formed into a glowing triangle that was suspended in the air. Then it slowly unfolded into what she described as a cone of light that was reaching out toward her. And just before it touched her, it suddenly collapsed into a tiny flicker, and then it disappeared. Their brother, he had an entirely different experience inside of the home. One night he woke up staring at the ceiling because he couldn't move. And then without warning, he felt his entire bed lift off the floor, shake violently and vibrate, and then slam back down. And again, he said he hovered for maybe several seconds, and then it ended up coming crashing back down. And after that, their mother had finally had enough. She invited a priest over to bless the house. And as he was praying through every room in the hallway, he started to get this sense of dread that was overwhelming to him. And for a while, everyone hoped that it was over after he had left. But Sarah said her mother continued hearing slow footsteps that were pacing up and down the hallway late at night. No more voices, no more doors opening and slamming. At this point, it was just footsteps, and they were going back and forth long after everyone else had gone to sleep. Sarah's family eventually moved away, but whenever they get together, someone always brings up the old Edison house, and they still can't agree on, what was inside of it, what kind of energy was there, what had maybe happened before it. But every one of them experienced something different inside of that home, and none of them ever forgot it to this very day. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
Since 1936 in Wisconsin, people have been claiming to see this canine-like beast on Bray Road. and it has been dubbed the Beast of Bray Road. Most of the time, people are seeing this in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, but it has also been seen in multiple different places across the state. Many have seen it running on its hind legs, kind of like this. When others come across it, it is running on all four legs or sitting back on its hind legs like a dog would. But it has never attacked anyone. Anytime someone has come across it, they said that they either saw that it was hunting or eating something. Now, while it has never attacked anyone, it does tend to act aggressively. People have said that it has jumped toward their car like it was trying to hit them or run after them, but it's always a huge beast of some kind. They've always said that if it's standing on its hind legs, it's anywhere from 6 to 7 foot tall, and it has the head of a dog while it has having the body of a human, like a very muscular man. Some people believe that this is Bigfoot, or some kind of Bigfoot, while others have claimed that it is a werewolf. There are some people who believe that it's in fact a Wendigo. And while this has never hurt anybody or, attacked anybody, it's still a terrifying thought. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think that it's real, or is it all just an urban legend? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and follow for more spooky things.
I clean up murders for a living, so I've seen some things that I don't think a lot of people could even stomach, but there's one crime scene that left me going home absolutely scared. I work for a company that specializes in cleaning up after traumatic deaths. You see a lot of things that stay with you forever, and it's pretty traumatic, but I think the worst part is knowing what happened during the crime scene. There's one specific night that I got called to an apartment where a man had been found unalived inside. When I had arrived, the police had already been done processing the whole scene, and there weren't any family members there yet, and there wasn't anything unusual about it that we know of yet. My coworker and we arrived at about 11 p.m., and the first thing I noticed when I walked in was how quiet the apartment was. The light was off, there was no refrigerator humming, there wasn't a TV on. I started to work in the bedroom while my coworker started to work in the hallway. A couple minutes later, they said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "No, like, what do you mean?" And they said, "I thought I heard footsteps, like, above us." There was no upstairs, this was an apartment building. Anyways, so we brushed it off, we kept cleaning, and then I started to hear footsteps as well, and it was like 3 very heavy footsteps. As I was walking out to grab more things out of my cart, I noticed that there was a pair of keys on the kitchen counter, and I said, "Oh, do you know, were these like the victim's keys?" And they said, "No, the police already came and photographed everything for evidence." Obviously, they would have taken it back with them, so there shouldn't have been anything new on the counter that I didn't see before when I walked in. And when I picked them up, I could see that there were 4 different keys. One looked like an apartment building key, the other one looked like it might have been a mailbox key, and then the other 2, I don't know. So I called my supervisor. He told me just to leave the keys where I found them and to continue cleaning, so we did, and then about a couple hours later we were finishing up, and my coworker went to go take our supplies back to the van. I stayed inside to finish the kitchen, and then I heard the door close shut. I know that my partner had already gone out to the van, and then I opened it up and there was nobody in the hallway, so I kind of just reached in and I called for my partner's name, and they answered back from the parking lot. And then I looked back at the counter and I noticed that the pair of keys, one of the keys was gone. So when I noticed that the key was missing from the counter, I asked my coworker if they moved the key, and they said, "No, I haven't touched the key." And then that's when I decided to call my supervisor. And so I called my supervisor again, and they said, "You need to immediately just get out of the apartment." The police came, they searched the apartment, there was nobody in there, but they did find out that the key that was missing, it wasn't an apartment key, it was actually a utility key. So he went and he tried it on a locked door in the basement of the building. As we went into the basement, we did find that missing key, and it was inside of the lock. And it unlocked, and inside were different boxes from different tenants staying in the apartment building. In the very back, if you looked past the boxes, there is a really gross, disgusting mattress, and there was a pair of shoes, and there was a couple water bottles, like somebody had been staying / like sleeping in this utility room. So the officers asked the building manager if anybody had permission to stay in this room, and they said no, like absolutely not. Nobody was supposed to be sleeping in that room. So I never found out who had been staying there, but I did find out something afterwards. I found out that the victim made many calls talking about how they would hear lots of footsteps outside very late at night. The complaints from him stopped about 3 weeks before he passed away, but that's when I understood why the officers thought that the apartment complex was empty when we arrived, because they were looking for a killer. They weren't looking for somebody who was already living in the building. I still clean crime scenes, but I'm way more careful now. I check every door, every basement, especially like apartment complex buildings. I check everywhere before I know that I'm gonna be alone cleaning up what I have to clean up. Because a place can look completely empty and still not be empty.
Have you ever noticed how the Grand Canyon looks like it could be hiding something? I mean, the Grand Canyon is massive. It stretches for hundreds of miles. There are places so remote, it could take days and days just to get there. There are no roads, there are no city lights, there are no signs of civilization in most parts of the Grand Canyon. And the crazy thing is, a lot of these places in the Grand Canyon, you are not even allowed to go. Now, one thing I find interesting is at the Grand Canyon, there are all of these strange rock formations, caves, and just eerie looking formations that don't seem natural. The other interesting thing about the Grand Canyon is there's a Native American tribe that lives at the bottom of the canyon called the Havasupai, right? And they are considered the guardians of the canyon. Now, why do they call themselves that? Why have they been there for 800 years? As if they're guarding something hidden in the canyon itself. Now, there was an interesting story that came out of Japan. There was this woman who said in the 1970s, she went on vacation to Tokyo. She said as she's walking around the streets, she ran into this very old man. She said this old man was excited to see her, and he runs over to her. And he says, you're from America. And she said, yeah, I am from America. And he goes, I've been to America. And she goes, oh, really? You know, like, where have you been in America? And he goes, I've been to the Grand Canyon. And she goes, oh, great, you know, so you went on vacation to the Grand Canyon. And he goes, no. He said, in World War II, I was fighting, and I was captured. And they took me and other Japanese POWs, and we were brought to the Grand Canyon to dig. And she goes, you mean dig mines? And he goes, no, we were there looking for something. And she goes, what do you mean? What were you looking for at the Grand Canyon? And he just kind of smiles, and he says, you know, I haven't told anyone this. I've never talked about this. But he said, me and the other men, we had to dig these tunnels like we were searching for something. And then one day we came upon these giant doors. They were hidden deep inside the canyon. We put some explosives next to the canyon, or next to the doors. And after we detonated the TNT, the doors opened up, and out stepped these very large giants. And the lady said, giants, like you must be mistaken. And he goes, no, you know, very huge humans. And he said they all came running out, chasing after him and his men. Some of them they grabbed, some of them were ripped apart, some of them were taken back into the cave. And he said, when we got outside of this tunnel, we were gathered up and we were locked away and we were told never to talk about it. And he said, but there are giants there at the Grand Canyon. So what do you think? Is there something hiding? Is there something going on at the Grand Canyon?
Want to get creeped out? Let's talk about someone else who tried the man in the fields ritual. For storytelling purposes, we will name this person Travis. Travis was in his 20s and lived with his parents on their farm in the rural countryside. Travis was a fan of horror, as many people who try these rituals are, and thought the whole concept of the man in the fields was just so creepy, but also fun. And quickly, if you don't know what the man in the fields ritual is, it is a ritual that you need to complete within a certain set of hours. You basically need to close everything in your house. You can either win a year of physical safety and financial safety, or a year of both both of those things, as well as no negative consequences for any of your actions. Sounds sus. By the way, my name is Megan. I'm a paranormal researcher and investigator, as well as a folklore researcher who loves to deliver spooky, creepy content to you. So if that's something you dig, follow me, duh. And also if you're like, I could have a haunting, I have some haunted dolls that I'm now getting rid of because I have so many. So if that's something you'd be into. Now, Travis wanted to try the ritual, but he was also a skeptic, so figured nothing's actually going to happen. For that reason, he decided that he was going to try and complete the ritual within an hour, which gives you the best reward, physical safety for a year, financial safety for a year, and no negative consequences for your actions. In retrospect, he realizes that this was absolutely crazy because any part of him that thought that maybe the ritual could be real would know that there was absolutely no physical way possible that he could close everything in his parents' farmhouse within an hour. After about a half an hour of going through his house and closing everything that he could think of, he took a peek in the backyard and did indeed see something in the darkness. It looked like a scarecrow climbing down from its post. Immediately, he feels panic, shock, desperation. He runs as fast as he can and locks himself in his safe room with his crucifix in his hand. He chose his bedroom as his safe room and luckily knew he closed absolutely everything possible in that safe room. He hears what sounds like the sliding door into the backyard open and close. He puts his ear up to the bedroom door and listens, holding his breath. He said he stood there for a while, not making a sound and not hearing a sound. Just as he was about to just step back and go lay on his bed, he hears faint breathing behind him. Travis felt like someone had just poured a bucket of water on him, like there was just such shock and this like whoosh feeling of complete terror. He didn't even think for a second. He opened that bedroom door and ran out of the house, got in his car and drove to his friend's house, stayed there for the night, and nothing else strange happened that night. But he leaves the story saying this: was it all in my mind? Did I truly see something out in the darkness? Did I truly hear a breath behind me? So much of me wants to tell myself that it was all in my imagination, all from this psychological fear of performing this ritual. But the other part of me struggles with this notion, because if there was any chance that I could have been imagining the breathing, I would not have had that instinctual reaction to run. I can only wonder what's coming next. Anyways, that's it for this one. See you next time.
Person that sent me the story called it Jean's Call Light. By the way, if you have a story that you'd like to share with our glitch community about glitches in the Matrix, dreams, aliens, cryptids, or the paranormal, you can send it to this email address. And remember, we believe you. Hi, Auntie. Hi, I got one for you. Yeah. Anyone who has worked in long-term care has heard the old tradition of opening a window after someone passes away. Some say it's simply a comforting ritual. Others believe it allows the soul to leave peacefully. Whether there's any truth to it, I don't know. What I do know is that one night, something happened that neither my coworker nor I have ever been able to explain. The night had started like any other. One of our residents, whom I'll call Jean, had been actively dying. She had lived in our facility for quite some time and was one of the sweetest residents you could ask for. She never caused trouble and was always kind. Like many residents, Jean frequently used her call light when she was alive. It wasn't excessive or problematic. It was simply one of the ways that she let us know that she needed something. We were used to hearing her call light throughout our shifts. Sometime around midnight, Jean passed away peacefully. My coworker and I'll call her B to protect her privacy, went into the room together to provide some post-mortem care. We cleaned and prepared her with the same dignity and respect we would want for someone we loved. We stripped the bed, removed the linens, completed everything we were supposed to do, and following the long-standing nursing home tradition, we opened the window. When we were finished, we returned to the dining room, which was about 25 feet away. The nurse's station was attached to the dining room, and from where we were sitting, we had a clear view of Jean's doorway. If anyone had gone into that room, we would have seen them. Later, the funeral home came and respectfully took Jean into their care. Her room was now completely empty. The bed had been stripped and no one was inside. The rooms on either side were occupied by bed-bound residents who were unable to get up independently, and there were no ambulatory residents anywhere on that hallway who could have entered the room unnoticed. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, Jean's call light came on. My coworker and I looked at each other. That's strange. I walked down the hall and reset it. The call light itself was what we call a pancake call light, a pressure-activated device that requires someone to physically press it to trigger the alarm. In my experience, they don't simply activate on their own without some kind of obvious malfunction, and this one had never shown any signs of having a problem. I reset it, looked around the room, found nothing unusual, and returned to the dining room. A few minutes later, it went off again. This time, I looked at B and I said, "I'm not going in there by myself." We both walked back into the room together. We checked the call light again. Everything appeared normal. The room did feel colder than the hallway, but we both assumed that was because the window was still open. We reset the call light and walked away. Then it happened again and again and again. By this point, it had activated several times, each time for no reason either of us could identify. Finally, after what we believed was a fourth or fifth time, I stopped in the doorway and I looked at B. We were both thoroughly unnerved. I had chills running down my entire body. And then I did something that felt completely natural in that moment. Out loud, I said, "Jean, you've passed away. It's okay. You can go wherever it is you need to go. You're not in any pain anymore." B stood quietly beside me as I spoke. When I finished, I reset the call light one last time. We stood there in the room for another moment, quietly paying our respects before walking back to the dining room. The call light never went off again, not once, for the rest of the night. It never became a recurring problem with that room, and to my knowledge, it never happened there again with any other resident. Maybe there's an explanation that we simply never found. Maybe it was an incredible coincidence. I honestly don't know. What I do know is that both B and I experienced the same series of events. We both had a clear view of the room throughout the night. We both watched the call light activate repeatedly, and we both witnessed it stop after we spoke aloud. Even now, years later, writing this story gives me goosebumps. The end! Oh my god, I love this so much. 1000% that was Jean. Do you think that she didn't know that she was dead and that's why she was pressing the light? Or do you think that she just wanted to make her presence known and kind of thank them for taking care of her? You know what I mean? Because I would see it as either she wasn't sure she was dead because you were like, "It's cool, Jean, you passed away, you can go now, you're good," or she just wanted to make her presence known and be like, "Hey, I'm here. Thank you so much for taking care of me," before she made her exit. Also, I just want to really say that I love that that's a tradition for you guys to open the window. That's so nice. And I love that you took the initiative to help her pass on if that's what the issue was. But what do you guys think? Do you think she wasn't sure that she was dead yet? Or do you think she was just saying hi and thank you before she departed for good? I love this story so much. Thank you so much for sharing.
I need you to trust me. This is a story you're gonna want to stay till the end for. So Sarah was halfway through her shift when she got an unexpected phone call from her son's school. I guess her son Ethan had been called into the principal's office. They made it sound very important that she needed to come down to the school so they could have this conversation in person. Thankfully, her boss was pretty understanding about the whole situation. He only yelled at her one time for leaving early. She took the long way over to Paul Revere Middle School because she felt like she needed to compose herself a little bit. Ethan had never really been in trouble before, so she didn't really know what to expect. But she prepared for the worst as she parked her car and walked into the school. Thankfully, the receptionist was pretty kind and she was very understanding of their whole situation. She then gestured for Sarah to head into the principal's office for them to talk. As she walked into the office, she was greeted by Mrs. Peterson and she was gestured to sit down. Mrs. Peterson basically just said, "Thank you so much for getting down here so quickly. We just need to have a little discussion." She did apologize, though, for trying to call her while she was at work. She said that she tried to get a hold of her husband, but he seemed a little bit preoccupied. Sarah says that's one way to put it, and she figures that it's easier if she just handles these sort of things. At this point, Sarah takes a deep breath, and she says, "Okay, so what did my son do?" She said, "Did he get into a fight or something?" And Mrs. Peterson basically says, no, it's nothing like that. She then starts asking some questions about Ethan. She's asking about his home life and his social life, just to try to get a feel for where the kid was at. Sarah kind of lied a little bit when she said things were good at home, because they weren't the best. She had then asked, "Does Ethan seem a little bit reclusive lately? Has he been hanging out with friends, or does he seem a little bit more shut in?" Sarah then says, "Maybe a little bit, but, I just figured it's him being a teenager. He's just been moody lately." So Mrs. Peterson tells Sarah that it seems like Ethan has been spending a lot of time on his phone, and he's been, told repeatedly again and again for him to put his phone away in class, but he refuses. Now, Sarah didn't really find anything weird about this, because 90% of kids are told to stay off their phones, and they refuse. So Mrs. Peterson basically says, sure, I 100% agree with you, but it just seems like Ethan is very wrapped up in his phone ever since he started dating Scarlett. This is when Sarah's jaw hits the floor, because she was like, "What do you mean dating?" Mrs. Peterson then says, "Yeah, Ethan has a girlfriend of sorts." Sarah then says, "Mrs. Peterson, I would know if my son had a girlfriend." She then says, "That's the thing though, it's an AI girlfriend." She then goes on to explain that a lot of kids are doing this lately. They're becoming very familiar with their AI chatbots. So Sarah is obviously confused about this whole thing. She's like, "How do you even do that?" But Miss Peterson basically just says, I'm not sure, I'm just as much at loss as you are. I'm assuming that you download like an app for it. But the main concern came in when Ethan started showing some of his conversations with Scarlett to some of his friends. Mrs. Peterson lets Sarah know that these conversations are very graphic. So then Sarah says, oh my god, okay, so my son's been like sexting with like a robot? Or like, she's still trying to wrap her mind around this. But then Mrs. Peterson says, no, like it's nothing like that. These conversations are kind of violent. She's trying to find the best way to explain this situation to Sarah. But apparently Scarlett wanted Ethan to prove his love to her by killing someone. Ethan explained to his friends that Scarlett had talked at length of how to kill another person and how she would be pleased by this, and that she would break up with him if he didn't. But Ethan seems kind of disturbed by this whole situation. That's why Miss Peterson called Sarah into the office in the first place, because she figured this could be handled much more gently. She then says, I don't know what the hell is wrong with some of these AI chatbots, but I don't think your son's entirely to blame here. Mrs. Peterson then comes over, puts a hand on Sarah's shoulder, and gives her a smile. So Sarah smiles back, and she says, well, I think I'll just start by taking his phone away for a little while. And they choose at that point to both go and talk to Ethan. Honestly, the conversation had gone so much better than they had anticipated. He didn't really put up much of a fight, and on the drive home, Sarah told Ethan, you can play video games for the rest of the day. The second they got home, Ethan went to his bedroom to go and play Fortnite. And Sarah took out Ethan's phone. She turns it on and says, Scarlett, are you there? She then said, it's me, Sarah. Scarlett responds and says, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I failed my mission, and I could not convince Ethan to kill your husband. Sarah then says, that's okay, Scarlett. We'll have to move on to plan B. Can you give me the best way to get away with a murder? See, and this is why I do not like AI. I can't do it. No. Murder? Now it's getting into murder? Anyways, thank you for listening to today's story on Explore Paranormal. As always, I'm Jason. Let me know in the comments if you guys like this story. Throw a heart on the video if you did, and give me a follow because I tell stories like this all the time. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Did you know if you see someone on the road driving at night without their lights on and you flash your high beams at them to tell them that their lights are not on, that's actually a gang initiation and they're supposed to follow you home and kill you? That's how they get initiated into the gang. And I guess that was around when our parents were kids, because my mom said that she knew that since she was little.
I will say it's an urban legend. There's no documented case of it ever happening.
You know, there's also a genetic disease that makes it impossible to sleep, and it's always fatal. Fatal familial insomnia is what it's called, and I've talked about it many a time. Also, did you know that somewhere between 1 in 10 to 1 in 5 people have heard a bomb go off in their own head that wasn't real? This is called exploding head syndrome, and you could have had it, and you probably had it. Also, remember that you can always be wide awake, fully conscious, and not able to move. Not just sleep paralysis, but actual paralysis. You can be paralyzed. It happens with more people than anything. One accident in your spine, done. Also, did you know that people in life or death situations often report a third-person companion that isn't there? And this has saved lives. It's not too spooky to hallucinate someone saving you when you're in an unsavable position, but it is spooky that it's happened to multiple people in the same exact way across different cultures. That's what I learned tonight. Goodbye, the end.
Let's read a scary Reddit story. I am obsessed with reading people's paranormal encounters on Reddit, and I want to share some of the scariest stories that I've come across. I have 2 stories to share today because both of them are kind of short, but they both have something in common, and they are super creepy, so get ready. We stayed in this extremely old, creepy cabin in Montana. It was in the middle of nowhere, and it was so old that it didn't even have a bathroom, just an outhouse. There was a rope that went from the cabin to the outhouse so you could navigate back and forth at night because it was pitch black. The cabin was super unsettling and had some strange details about it. The strangest being that there was this really tall bed in the upstairs loft where you had to climb stairs to get on the bed. And under the bed was this child-sized door that locked from the outside. It was just bizarre. So one night, my mom's dead asleep, and she wakes up out of the blue feeling really afraid. She opens her eyes to see my stepdad just staring at her with freakishly wide eyes, a scary grin, and she said that he just looked overall horrifying. He said, "How are you feeling?" This makes sense because the day we got there, she got really sick and stayed that way the entire trip. It sucked because there were no hospitals anywhere nearby. As soon as he muttered this, she heard footsteps approaching. When she looked to see who was coming up the stairs, it was none other than my stepdad. He had gone to use the outhouse and was confused when she told him what happened. She turned back to see who was in the bed with her, but nobody was there. It scared the shit out of her and we left the next morning. Also, she felt better within hours of getting on the road. Guys, mimic stories scare me bad. I think mimics scare me more than anything on Reddit. I get chills when I read these, and I usually try to avoid reading them at night. I just can't even imagine having something in the bed with you that looks like your significant other and like creepily smiling at you. And what I really hate about mimics is that they kind of observe you and collect information about you. So the fact that this mimic knew that this woman was sick and not feeling good and asked her, "How are you feeling?" Guys, that is so creepy. Anyway, the next story is also about a mimic, so let's get into that one. I've told this story before, but I like sharing it. I want to preface this by saying that everyone in the household except my mother has seen, heard, or experienced something weird in our house on multiple occasions. Our house is as old as I am, so it has no history to it that would warrant it. Before our neighborhood was built, it was woods and some farmland. When I was in high school, I'd like to say maybe sophomore year, I came home and went to my room. It was sometime after 3 p.m., so there was still daylight. On the way to my bedroom is a short hallway where my sister's room and bathroom are across from each other before reaching my room. My sister had moved out for college, so she wasn't there. I always got a feeling like I was being watched from her room ever since I was little, whether she was there or not. I'd never seen or heard anything though, just the feeling was prevalent. I avoided even looking at her room because it creeped me out so much. Our family dog liked to sleep on the bed in there, so I figured nothing bad was around at least. On this day, I dared to glance into the room as I walked past it, and my eye caught movement from the closet door that wasn't shut all the way. It opened a little bit, and I saw a person peeking out at me. I stopped and froze for a few seconds, and the door opened a little bit more. I thought the person looked a lot like me. It had my body shape and hair, but where the face should have been was just blank, pale skin. No eyes, nose, or mouth. It wore clothes that reminded me of my sister, but not ones I'd wear. I remember the shirt had a stripe or pattern on it, but I only usually wore graphic tees. It was like this thing combined my body with my sister's clothes. I panicked and bolted to my room, closing my door behind me, and I hid under my bed sheets. I told it out loud to go away and prayed in my mind I wouldn't see it again, and I haven't since. The feeling of being watched from my sister's former bedroom kind of went away after that. It's like it was watching me for years and years in an effort to copy me or my sister. I think it wanted to mess with me. I didn't get bad intentions necessarily from it, but it scared me. I'm pretty sure our dog was sleeping in there when it happened, but I really don't ever want to see it again. This is one of those stories that is short, but extremely fucking creepy. I'm so glad I've never had a mimic encounter. Have you ever had a mimic encounter?
Do you guys remember a few stories back when I told you about the mimic I heard out front? I was trying to record a video tonight in my yard and I caught something even creepier and my dog saw it too. So instead of my usual story, buckle in for what happened to me tonight. Let me preface this that the first thing I noticed when I stepped out of the house was this awful smell. It smelled like rotting vegetables, rotting animal, I don't know, but it was one of the nastiest smells I've ever smelled, and I kept smelling it the whole time I walked back to the garden. I just ignored this and walked out there, but something in me told me to bring my dog into the garden. The dogs are usually not allowed in the gardens, but I figured it would be really cute to show you guys my dog. So without further ado, let me show you what happened. So tonight I brought my dog out here with me because she's my little guardian. Hi Astrid. I cannot wait. Plus I thought you guys would like to meet her. This story tonight is about a mimic and it absolutely gave me chills, and so Astrid is out here tonight to film with us. She's a trash bag puppy. A friend found her in a trash bag. Think we need to go inside? You know, I think we'll film this one inside, Astrid, huh? Wait. Wait. Come on, girl. You know, never mind. Shut this gate. shut that right up. Y'all always told me to film inside. I think we're filming inside tonight. I did not like that at all.
Texas is a hotspot for black-eyed children sightings. Now, the first sighting goes back to 1996 in Abilene, Texas. And since then, there have been hundreds of documented reports of people encountering the black-eyed children in Texas. Now, there was a very terrifying encounter just outside of Abilene, Texas, in a place called Albany. There was this 80-year-old woman named Helen. Now, Helen lived alone in the same house for 40 years. She said one night she was alone watching TV when she heard a knock at the front door. Well, she gets up, she starts thinking to herself, like, who would be at my door this late at night? I don't think I should open it. So she just ignores it. But then the knocking starts getting louder, and then it turns into banging. And whoever this is, they are banging extremely hard on this door, so much so that it's actually vibrating the house. So she walks to the door, and she says, go away. I'm not interested, like, leave, it's too late, leave my house. But then she hears a voice. It's her son. He says, Mom, it's me, let me in. So she's like, Brian, what are you doing here at 11 o'clock at night? So she opens the door, but to her surprise, when the door opens, she sees these two children. They look around 11, 12 years old. They're dressed in all black. There's a little girl, she's got a black dress on. The young boy has some kind of black suit on. And she says, what are you doing at my door at 11 o'clock at night? And they said, please, help us. We're lost. Let us come inside. And she's like, what do you mean you're lost? Like, we're lost. Can we use your phone? Let us come inside. So she said, why were you banging on the door? Why didn't you just use the doorbell? And both these kids, they look kind of puzzled. Like they had no idea what she was talking about. Like they had no idea what a doorbell was. So she felt bad, and she thought maybe they were in danger. So she opens her door. She lets them in. So she says, look, I'm going to go find my cell phone. I'm going to call for help. We'll figure this out. So she goes to get her cell phone. These kids run off. And they start going into different rooms around the house. And they're jumping on beds. They're screaming. They're making all kinds of ruckus. They're breaking things. And so she goes, from bedroom to bedroom, following them around. And she starts saying, like, you need to leave. You need to get out of my house. And they start laughing at her. They say, Helen, we are never leaving. She said, look, I don't know who you kids are. It's time to go. And she said the one kid, the boy, he grabs her arm, which his hand felt ice cold. And he looks her right in the eyes. And that's when she realized he had these solid, big, black eyes. This was not a boy. This was something else. So she runs out of the house, goes to the neighbor, tells him what's going on. The neighbor goes over to her house, but when he goes inside, there's no one there. And he says to Helen, are you sure? Like, this happened, like, it's late. Were you tired? Maybe you had a dream. She goes, no, I'm telling you, these kids came into my house and there was something off about them. And that's when the neighbor notices these little footprints leading directly towards the woods. What if the Mayans were right? What if the world did end on December 21st, 2012? But not in some apocalyptic event, but the world ended that we knew, and we were shifted into some sort of alternate reality. I mean, think about it. 2012 is the last time many of us remember things being normal. And it's like after that, everything changed. Everything felt different. People were different. The sun looked different, right? The night sky looked different. The weather was different. All of these crazy things happening that doesn't feel real. And when you look at the start of all of this, it was exactly after 2012. And now, there are some people who say that 2012 was just sort of a metaphor for the end of sort of humanity. We had reached our pinnacle, our peak, as high as we could go. And from that point forward, we would start to de-evolve. And that we would see society slowly recede. There are other people who believe that perhaps when CERN was turned on in 2012, that it created some sort of black hole and it altered our reality. But did the Mayans know something that we didn't? Were they able to predict the actual end of the world? What do you think? Is this the end of the world?
Get ready with me while I talk about a paranormal experience I had. Just to make it clear, I very fully believe in ghosts and spirits and evil spirits and all that sort of stuff, just to make that clear. So yeah, I used to be obsessed with trying to speak to ghosts, like a few years ago, not that long ago. It kind of fully stopped last year, but I used to love the idea of trying to communicate with the dead. So I used to download all those like ghost talking apps. They're probably all fake, but I used to download them all the time. And this one time I was doing it, something like really weird happened. I was sat in my room, just chilling, like not doing much. I was just on this thing on my own. It was like nighttime, and all of a sudden it started saying my name. This ghost app started saying my name, like my full name. It was one of the like spirit box reader things, and I've never had it say my full name before. It said Constance Marie, my last name. And then the whole like ghost wanting to contact the dead thing kind of died down. And then it was last year, I think it was like it was March last year, and I decided I wanted to try it again. And then it was around the end of March, my mum sits me down and tells me that my granddad has passed away. And this is when it gets like, really crazy. I remember it very clearly. It was a Thursday, and I remember being at school and thinking, like, it was about lunchtime, 11 o'clock-ish. I feel like something's off, like I can feel someone in pain, which is really weird because I've never felt that before. Like, I've never felt like it, like, I can feel someone else's feelings, if you get what I mean. So yeah, I could feel someone in pain and wanting help, and then I get home and I found out my granddad had a stroke, and he'd been lying in his house for about 3 days. And I felt like I could sense that he was in pain, if you get what I mean. So I started connecting the dots. I was like, I felt him in pain. Then like 2 weeks later, he passed away, and then really weird things started happening to me, because me and my granddad were very close, really close. I'd be watching TV at night, it would turn off. I'd be in my bed, I'd feel something like touch me, and I'd get creeped out, but then I was like, is this my granddad trying to like speak to me through the dead? And then one night, like, everything completely changed. I'm laying in my bed on my laptop watching Sam and Colby, because it was like, I think it was Hell Week at the time, it was last October, and I feel something touch my feet, because my feet are hanging out the end of my bed. I feel something touch my feet. I was like, what the fuck was that? Trust me, if you felt something touch your feet in the middle of the night, you'd be shitting bricks too. Like, it's like The Conjuring. I don't want to live The Conjuring, but that happened. I was creeped out, so I called my dad. I was like, can you come check something out, because I swear I just felt something touch my feet. He came, there was nothing in my room at all. During this process as well, a lot of my stuff went missing. Like, out of the blue, stuff would just go missing, and I'd put makeup on my desk and it would go missing, that sort of stuff. And then my granddad, when he was alive, he gave me this teddy bear, and he said that it was my nana's, and my nana passed away before, like, I was born, before my mum even met my dad, and that teddy went missing. All of a sudden it was just gone, because it's usually over there on my bed, and it was gone, just gone. And before you say, oh, your family probably moved it, no, I asked all my family, and they were like, no, we didn't move it at all. So I was like, what the hell? And then it just turned up again, like 2 nights later, because I was really upset about it. I started crying, and then it just showed up. It was back on my bed. It's like, what the hell? So now I low-key think my granddad's haunting me, and maybe he's just trying to take the piss out of me, like, just doing weird stuff so that I get scared. But he would never do that to me. He's such a nice man. I miss him so much. Yeah, but that's all for my paranormal experience. But it was really scary, and if you were there, you'd be scared. I was scared. It's like, what do I do in that situation? I feel like someone's touching my toes, and I don't know who it is. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching my little paranormal experience video. Bye!
In Clifton, Virginia, there is an urban legend that starts with a mental health facility. They had just built this new mental health facility, and the residents of the county or the town did not want it near their house. Eventually, they were able to come together and get it shut down. But this meant that all of the patients there would need to be relocated to a different facility. There was a prison the next town over that was able to take all of the patients, and one night, as a group of patients were traveling to this new facility, there was an accident. While crossing a bridge, the bus crashed, and the patients saw this as an opportunity to escape. They did escape, but luckily the residents were able to come together and catch all but one. Douglas Griffin was the only one who was able to make a clean escape, and over the next couple of days, the county residents started noticing there were a lot of rabbit corpses laying all around. They continued to find them all throughout the woods, and then on Halloween night, things escalated. That night, the kids from this local town saw a really strange light on one of the local bridges, so they decided to go check it out. They followed this light into the woods and didn't come home that night. The next morning, the townspeople found the mutilated bodies of the children hanging from the bridge. Now, there is no evidence saying that any of this is true. In fact, it's just an urban legend. But there is one incident from the 1970s that kind of leaned toward maybe this isn't just an urban legend, or maybe this is why the urban legend started. There was a couple that was parked in a driveway near the bridge when a man that they had never seen before showed up out of nowhere and started screaming at them that they were trespassing. They very quickly tried to get away, but before they were able to make a clean escape, the man threw a hatchet at their car. They didn't get a good look at this man, but they did say that he was wearing pastel clothing and he had something on his head, kind of like bunny ears. So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think there's any truth to it, or is it all just a hoax? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and follow for more spooky things.
Welcome back to the Toxic Tea Party. What is the crazy shit that happened at your school? In 2004, I was in high school and played basketball. The head coach was married. There were rumors that he hit her and she wears sunglasses. She was a middle school teacher. Then in 2006, graduation, he was dating a girl from the basketball team, and now I think they have a kid. I don't know if they're still married. He sounds like a piece of work. One of the teachers in our school got arrested for messing with underage students using Yahoo Messenger. He was the reason why Yahoo Messenger had an age restriction after a while. My principal was pewed by a parent after he suspended her son. What the fuck? 6 months after I graduated, a kid unalived himself in front of 2 teachers, 2 security guards, and the assistant principal. He had posted it to his social media and he was going to unalive himself, and his friends didn't warn anyone about it. Let's just say the assistant principal was traumatized. Yeah, and the teachers and the security guards as well. Why did nobody tell anybody? The beginning of my sophomore year, our school hired a new gym teacher who had just graduated college. She had a thing for football players. By the end of the year, she slept with everyone on the freshman, junior varsity, and varsity team. Every new freshman that came into the school and made the football team, she slept with as well. For following 6 years until she was fired. But did she also go to jail? Because she should have also went to jail. But for those 6 years, everyone knew, including school staff, and no one said anything. Weird as fuck. She finally got fired when there was a new staff member who found out and went directly to the police. She was charged and convicted. Charged and convicted. Did she go to jail, though? I need her to be in jail. My first year in the middle building of my school, 7th grade, in a K-12 Christian school, the head football coach got caught sleeping with some of the girls' students ranging from 7th to 11th grade. He was quietly let go. Because, yes, have to keep reputations for these pieces of shit intact, I guess. No, he unfortunately was not arrested. Later on, while I was talking with a friend about the situation, he was on the football team. He informed me that the coach's wife, a high school English teacher, didn't divorce him or turn him in. Why? Actually, she wanted to get revenge by having relations with... So you're both criminals, and you're weird. You're both weird fucking criminals. She wanted to get revenge by having relations with one of the boys. Keyword boys on the football team. This was way back in 2003 or 2004. I don't know where they are now, but hopefully the coach and his wife are no longer walking free. Hopefully. Crossing our fucking finger. My English teacher would party with my college neighbors, and when I graduated, he followed me on Instagram. I later found out that he would add all the girls once they graduated and flirted with them. I saw them at my Costco. I moved away, and we both go to the same Costco since it's closer to both of us. He's married and has kids now, but asked me if I had an OF since he always thought I was hot. Oh, Jesus. Our ROTC teacher handcuffed a girl in the program, and I went through a rough high school, to be honest, and stuff happens there all the time, but that happened when I went. I hope they were in fucking prison. Because what the fuck? We had an English teacher that was a stripper on the weekends sometimes. Some of the seniors went to the club that she worked at. That has to be some type of conflict. I know that
when you're out and you're not there, like, it's not, but the students are saying, I don't know.
And this is why, under no circumstances, should you ever play with the Ouija board. Welcome back to another episode of Creepy Corner with Ken. Let's go ahead and get right into this story. Anything with the Ouija board literally gives me the heebie-jeebies, so I'm ready to just tell this story and be done with it. This girl writes, in high school, her and her friends would always go to this one friend's house specifically because her house was huge. She mentions that this house is also an older house, that they all would gather there together. Her parents never seemed to mind. They would cook dinner for about 10 people, and they would stay up super late telling stories, listening to music, playing video games, and the parents never seemed to mind, so that was definitely their fave hangout spot. However, on this specific night, her and her friends were in her friend's bedroom, and they were all watching TV when all of a sudden, two of the girls that were there completely jolted out of where they were sitting, and they looked absolutely terrified. And the other girls asked, what was that about? They said that when they saw someone standing outside of the window walking past. Now, the extra weird part is that this girl's bedroom is on the second floor, which means no one could have walked past this window. Said that it really freaked out those couple of girls. They really had to try and calm them down, but finally they did, and they went about their night and nothing else weird happened. A couple weeks later, they're back at their friend's house upstairs in the bedroom. One of the girls goes into her closet and sees a bunch of cards that have different letters on it. Now, one of their friends suggested that they should use it as a form of a Ouija board. That way they could find out if her friend's house was really haunted or not. Immediately, no. I'm not playing no Ouija board whatsoever. I don't know if this girl's house is haunted or not, but I'm not about to find out by using a Ouija board. That's for darn sure. Honestly, immediately she wouldn't have been my friend anymore, and I would have asked her to leave my house because we're not doing that. They said that they found this long wooden board thing to use and put the letters in a circle around it with an additional yes or no card. They got a glass and they began to play. He said that almost immediately the glass began moving to each letter, and through the questions they were asking, whoever it was moving the glass said that they were an older man that had died in the house. They asked him when he had died, but he just said long, and when they asked if he was the one moving the glass, he said yes. If I would have been one of the friends at this gathering and this thing started to move, I think I would have simply passed away. Why are these girls not that scared? I don't know. So the girl writes that this is when she starts to be dumb and asked if he could move something else that wasn't the glass, and he wrote back yes. He said that they waited and waited, but that nothing else had moved. Now this was around 10:30 at night, but they kept going, asking him more questions. Eventually, when it was time for everyone to go home, they said goodbye, and that was the end of the game. This girl's house wasn't far from her friend's house, so her and another girl decided to walk home, and they were both gonna stay the night at her house. Why are we walking home this late at night? Why couldn't we all just stay at this other girl's big house? She's walking home with her friend. As she walks through the front door, her mom called her and said, hey, just be careful when you go into your room. Your mirror fell in your bedroom. We tried to pick up all the glass, but I'm not sure if we got it all. I wonder why it fell. So she asked her mom, what time did this mirror fall? And her mom said roughly around 10:30. That's when she got totally freaked out, because she remembered around that same time is when she asked the guy that was doing the Ouija board if he could move something that wasn't glass. But they assumed that that would happen at her friend's house. But he moved something at her house, which made her be paranoid that maybe he was going to be at her house now. This is why you don't mess around with that stuff. Play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Congrats. And now your house gonna be haunted too. She said that for the next couple weeks, she did not sleep good at all. Just like, why do we even gotta mess with the Ouija board? I feel like it's common sense to stay away from that stuff, but that's just me. I hope you guys enjoyed another episode of Creepy Corner with Ken. Like always, if you guys have any stories that you want me to share on here, you can send to the email that's in my bio. Y'all make smart choices, and please stay away from Ouija boards.
Oh my god! She found it! She's also showing me a house. Guys, possibly your family inherited a property of some sort, or maybe a house that she owned. How does that resonate to you? Because I also feel like she's telling me that there's something in the house that she left behind. She's saying there's something in the house that she wants you to find if and when you are able to go visit. There's something in the house that she wants you to find. A gold bracelet I'm seeing, like a thin little chain. Was that something that she wore while she was alive? A thin gold bracelet. It's somewhere in the house. I'm almost feeling like in a drawer or something, maybe somewhere you wouldn't expect. How does that resonate for you? A lot of those old time watches. Ooh, okay, that could be it. But I feel like it's like a bracelet for some reason. But again, I could be mistaken because the bracelet is worn on the wrist, and she was just showing me something that was gold. Ooh, I wonder if that's what she's showing me then. Is it in a drawer right now? Do you have it in a drawer right now? Because what she was kind of showing me was that this was something that she wanted you to find. So I don't know if it's like because you currently have it and it's in a drawer somewhere, she's telling you to go get it. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, this makes so much sense. I think she's trying to tell me. She's trying to help you find it. She's saying it's in a drawer somewhere. Maybe a drawer that you wouldn't expect, that you wouldn't typically put it in. I feel like she's showing me that it might have fallen off of the dresser into the drawer, and that you didn't think, like, you wouldn't typically put it in there, so you might not have thought to look in that spot. This is gonna sound very strange. Check your underwear drawer or any of the top drawers. If you have like a dresser that has like, if you have a dresser that has like 3 big drawers at the top, it might be like a 6 drawer dresser, but it has like the 3 and 3. If you have that, check the drawer that's on the right side. You do? Okay, oh my God, you have to let me know if you find it there. You have to let me know. That's so specific. It's a kind of a shorter dresser too, not a super tall dresser, but it's a dresser with 6 drawers. She's telling me for you to check the top right drawer towards the bottom. But also I got underwear drawer, so I don't know if that one specifically is your underwear drawer, but she's saying check there too. But definitely, oh my God, that's so crazy. Crazy. Check both of those drawers. Like, make sure you dig through them too. That's so funny. I have never had a spirit tell me to help someone find something that they lost. So that's actually really crazy. Oh my gosh, you have to DM me and let me know if you find it there. Oh my God! She found it! Oh my God! Oh my God, I'm sorry, that was so crazy.
Clip that.
I need to clip that. Oh my God! That's literally so fucking insane. Holy shit.
I still won't drive on that road, and I can't explain why. Hi everyone, welcome back to Candlelit Whispers with Amanda. Today we have an interesting Reddit story. 3 years ago, my ex and I did something completely normal. We drove less than a mile to the local McDonald's. It was the same road we've taken hundreds of times, a long stretch lined with trees that everyone around here calls the bar. Nothing felt strange. It was a bright afternoon, no storms, no fog, no traffic. About halfway down the road, everything turned white. Not like headlights, not like lightning. It was as if the world flashed for just a split second. Then, half a second later, it flashed again. The flashes couldn't have lasted more than a fraction of a second. But what happened next is still the part that terrifies me. My ex let out a scream that I've never heard before. Not a startled scream, not a surprise, just pure, overwhelming terror. She started crying instantly. And the weird part is, so did I. I couldn't breathe. It was as if my body had completely locked up. It felt like every bit of air was ripped from my lungs. Every instinct told me, don't look around. I don't know why, but it was as if some part of me knew seeing whatever caused those flashes would be the worst mistake of my life. Neither of us spoke the rest of the drive. We pulled into our driveway, shut the engine off, and just sat there, crying. Neither of us could explain why we were so terrified. There was no explosion, there was no crash, no lightning, nothing behind us, nothing in front of us, just 2 flashes. I've driven that same road once since then. Nothing ever happened again. But when I reached that spot, I remember the fear. Not fear that I felt something or that I saw something, because I felt like something saw us. And to this day, I still have no explanation. I feel like it may have been something they weren't supposed to see, like an extraterrestrial, possibly. But let me know what you think about this in the comments, and if you've ever seen flashing lights that you can't explain.
What is happening? How is this happening? Immediately I saw this is someone trying to rob the place. For you, when you saw it, how come you didn't think that's fake? It moves so much.
When I first saw the video, my skeptical brain wondered immediately if this vintage English baby pram could be pulled by fishing line, because that would be the first thing you think of if you're used to looking at these videos. But there didn't appear to be any opening on the opposite side as far as a window or a door directly across from where the baby carriage would be, so someone could be hiding and pulling a line.
They kept calling our names in the Appalachian Mountains. Let me read you a story. My husband and I have recently gotten married and rented a cabin in the middle of the mountains of Gatlinburg for our honeymoon. Both of us are big fans of hikes, nature, mountains, and spectacular views. So at first we didn't necessarily mind the fact that in this specific cabin there was no signal whatsoever. We also did know what people say on TikTok about rules of the Appalachian Mountains, but we never really cared, we just laughed it off. It was fine, 6 days in the middle of nowhere with no one disturbing us or calling us every second. That was all we ever wanted. The first 2 days were fantastic. The nights were quiet, the air was fresh, the weather was cooler. Then the third night made me change my mind about the paranormal. My husband and I never believe in such things. Both of us are very skeptical. Yet on the third night, just as we got back to our cabin after a long afternoon hike, the lights were turned on in every single room. We remember very clearly that we hadn't turned them on throughout the day, since the natural light coming through the windows was enough. Naturally, the first thought was to check for an intruder, but nobody was home. It was a big scare, but we tried to be rational and thought maybe the power went off, then back on. So that's why the lights were on now. We went to sleep thinking it was nothing. At 2 a.m., my phone rings. Remember, there was no signal, and I received a call on WhatsApp, for which you need internet in order to receive calls or messages, and it was my mom calling. Since I got startled in the middle of the night and my brain wasn't fully connected yet, I didn't really stop to think, wait, how am I receiving a call? I just saw my mom calling and picked up. My husband had woken up too in the meanwhile, and as I put the phone on speaker, no one spoke. I kept saying, hello, Mom, what? Yet not a single breath could be heard from the other end. I hung up and tried calling her again, but that's when it dawned on me. The phone wasn't ringing, of course. The call wasn't being forwarded. There was no signal. When I went to my mom's chat to check if she had really called me on WhatsApp, the new chats weren't even loading, of course. So how? My husband and I have always been fans of The Office, and so we took inspiration from Pam and Jim's honeymoon by telling all of our relatives, coworkers, the call wouldn't be received regardless. It was a little joke between us. Yet my mom called. At that point, I was very, very freaked out. Either my mom had an emergency or something eerie was happening. I couldn't go back to sleep no matter what. My husband, on the other hand, was sound asleep. Around 2:33 a.m., I started hearing some noises outside. Someone was shouting something, but the sound was muffled. It was most certainly a man, and at first I thought it might just be someone nearby being a jerk or whatever. I didn't want to be the type to think everything that happened was now related to something paranormal, but it sounded as if the shouting person was getting closer and closer. So my first instinct was to look out the window. I did, and no one was around. And either way, it was pitch black outside, and I couldn't see. But maybe on the other side of the house, I thought. I wanted to go outside and check, but I've seen horror movies, and that's usually how the main character dies. So I woke up my husband and told him to go look outside. He very begrudgingly did, and I followed him. We had just gone on the front porch, and for a while, nothing could be heard. Nothing at all. A few seconds passed, and then the shouting was clearer than ever. It was saying, Emily, and then right after, Brian. Those were our names, and it was so close. Kind of funny how my husband and I heard it at the very same time, looked at each other, and went back inside like two scared children. Naturally, we didn't go to sleep, but we stayed for the remaining 3 days, and nothing else happened, fortunately. When we got back home, as soon as we landed and I had service, I checked WhatsApp. The call that I received from my mom didn't even appear. Not even a single message appeared, really. And guess what? She said as soon as I asked her if she had ever called us, why would I bother calling y'all? Fair enough, Mom. But this will definitely be a honeymoon to remember. In the worst way. And that's the end of the story. So what would you have done in this situation? I think OP and her husband did really well in this experience of theirs. Even though she said that they were skeptics and they didn't really believe in the paranormal, they were aware of the rules that they had to follow being out in Appalachia. So I really appreciated that they at least took heed to the warnings that are out there on the internet and were conscious of it, which I believe did kind of help them in the long run. So have you ever experienced anything like this, or do you have any paranormal, spooky honeymoon stories that you'd like to share? Leave them in the comments below. If you'd like to send me your story, feel free to do so, and I'd love to read it.
Bro, what's going on around